Hello, I'm Shannon Vandermark. This is the Happily Ever After Without Children podcast. Nice to have you back, subscribers, and a big welcome to any newcomers. This podcast is for anyone who doesn't have children and for anyone who loves someone who doesn't have children. It is for those who have struggled to conceive, but also for anyone who has found themselves realizing that for whatever reason, children of their own might not be in their futures. It's also for those steadfast in their decisions to never have children in the first place. Everyone holds a rightful place in this conversation. Everyone. And that means the men too. Let me take a second to explain how this podcasting thing works. Some podcasts are produced by big companies or small companies or medium-sized companies that have budgets to pay for equipment, broadcasting and hosting expenses, producers, editors, nice coffee and tea services, the occasional special chocolate treat, quilted toilet paper, nice hand towels, stationery, fax machines, etc., etc., etc. You get the picture. But there are other more niche podcasts such as this one, which are created entirely by one person. This is what many would call an independent podcast. Because I am an independent producer, I don't have a budget for any of those fancy things like fax machines and pagers, but I also do not have a budget for marketing and publicity. The best way for the public to find this program is through word of mouth, and by stacking up a pile of reviews on iTunes specifically. If you like what you hear, please take a moment to write a review on the Happily Ever After Without Children podcast on iTunes. It needn't take more than a couple of minutes, and it won't cost you a penny or a pence. Happy Thanksgiving to anyone who is celebrating. I hope you are spending time with loved ones, discovering your gratitude and acknowledging your abundance, as I am. At the moment, I am at my sister and brother-in-law's home in Kansas City, the very same place where we all convened 2 years ago. I am looking out the window through the branches of a Japanese maple tree that is pretty much packing it in for the winter. There's a scattering of fiery red leaves that are all curled up, ready to drop, and currently trembling in the wind. The room I'm in is cozy and welcoming and feels like home. I made this trip at this time this year, not only to celebrate Thanksgiving with my family, but also to meet my 3-month-old niece, Grace Lee, who already has everyone she meets wrapped around her teeny-weeny finger. It's impossible to express the level of unconditional love I felt for her even before we met, and how that has exploded into an entirely spectacular level now that I have held her, looked into her eyes, and made her smile. Being with this baby has not shattered my heart into a million pieces, but rather it's healed it. Of course, I can't help but imagine how wonderful it would be if I were here with my own children and they were all playing with their cousins and I was introducing my half-British children to the traditions of an American Thanksgiving. But instead, I'm focusing on creating memories with my niece and nephew because they're here and they're real, and that's all that matters. After my last episode, I didn't have any immediate plans for which interview to broadcast next. I always had these interviews in my back pocket with my brother, mom, and dad that I recorded 2 years ago when my family was last together for Thanksgiving. At that time, it was before the birth of the Happily Ever After podcast, and I was desperately searching for the meaning of life without children. I started questioning the importance of legacy with anyone who would engage with me pretty much, because once I started realizing that I might not have children of my own, I began suffering a kind of existential crisis as I battled thoughts that revolved around, what is the meaning of it all then? So you will hear some archived interviews with my dad, John, mom, Joanne, and brother, Adam, which are a little bit amateur hour on my part, with some background noise and so on. I mean, there was a family Thanksgiving going on after all. And after the break, you'll hear a couple of current interviews with my sister, Bethany, and my brother-in-law, Gordon, which are super professional because I have had 10 episodes to practice. Thanksgiving to me is all about appreciating the love around us and being grateful for what we have. We certainly acknowledge those who aren't with us this year, like my husband, who unfortunately is working back in the UK, and Gordon's father, who passed away in March of this year. But we as a family spend most of our time together soaking up all we have right here. Mostly in the form of craft beers, snacks, and Bloody Marys. But what better way for me to celebrate Thanksgiving, but through this podcast that I love and giving some airtime to my family who I love. Interestingly, everyone I spoke with had kind of the same thing to say about legacy. We don't find it simply in the children we may rear, but rather in the people we meet every day. So on this Thanksgiving, I hope to throw some positive vibes out to you, because today can be any of our happily ever afters, and the only promise of the future is that none of us really know where we're headed. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I'll check in with you at the break. So the reason why I'm interested in talking about legacy is because I think just recently it's kind of occurred to me that you get to, I think, a point in your life when you go, so if we're not having kids, then what is all of this for?
Yeah.
And what do you like? Does it matter if you're a good person? Does it matter if you make money even? Because you don't really need to pass it to anyone.
Right.
Does it matter if you, what's the point?
Right.
So I think it's interesting. At the moment, my prediction is that anyone with kids will say that they don't really contemplate it. And then people without kids maybe don't contemplate it either, but I'm just interested.
Contemplate having a legacy?
Yeah, or even think about what that means or how important it is, because they already...
It's already there.
It's in the bag.
Yeah.
But I just thought maybe it's something that people just don't think about anyway. So that's why I find the topic interesting at the moment. Do you think that mom and dad had a idea of some sort of legacy to pass on to us?
Family values has always been important in our family. I think that's probably the main thing, and just generally being good. Grew up going to church, obviously, like a lot of positive, messages there. But didn't force it, in our adult lives.
Mm-hmm.
Which I like, because I kind of went the other way, and, I'm now not into that, but I'm glad I kind of had that upbringing, I guess.
What's the other way? The way of the devil?
The way of Satan.
Well, none of us went the church way, did we?
No, it's true.
But then they're not going the church way now either.
Right. But we're all grown. Maybe that was just important to our upbringing.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know. I think it definitely was important to them because, it was kind of a strict thing that we did growing up. We went every Sunday.
Hungover or not?
We're not at 16. I can't say why. Maybe it was their parents that wanted them to have that legacy, and they just wanted to honor that and carry that on.
What do you think you got out of going to church regularly?
Cookies and punch.
Tea
and mission trips. I did the mission trips.
And so what did you get out of that? Like,
helping people. That was a good way to convey that message that, you should help other people in life, not just have it be all about yourself. So, I think all the extracurricular activities in church is what I was more into.
Yeah. Than the spiritual.
That never kind of landed with me.
Yeah. What do you think that you've lived up to that legacy then, in terms of the things that Mom and Dad would have found important?
I think so.
And so what is the idea of legacy important to you as an individual living on Earth?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to be remembered, you know?
And
in a decent way.
what's a decent way? What are some things that you do that you think might have permanence? That might.
I like to think that I have some sort of effect on, like a positive effect on people, whether they know it or not. Like, you know, just bringing that kind of energy to a room. So I feel like, I don't know, that might be something that people miss about me.
So do you think that legacy is more important to humanity, the environment, or the id? Do you know what the id is?
They're like my personal ego, yeah.
Or something else? I mean, it could be.
I guess it depends on the person.
To you.
For me, I don't feel like I'm super egotistical. Maybe just for humanity, you know. I do a lot of shitty shit to the environment, I think, in my personal life.
Sorry about that, humanity.
Sorry, humanity.
I'm fucking up your environment.
But nothing substantial. Throw my cigarette butts in the street.
Yeah, that's pretty gross. So to you...
But I don't deliberately, like, aside from that, deliberately litter or...
kill endangered species.
Yeah.
If you had to kind of evaluate things, what would be the thing that you would regret? Would it be that you hadn't left behind a building with your name on it, or earned enough money? If you had to
the
evaluate...
money or that kind of stuff isn't that important to me. As you know, I kind of just coasting along.
Financially,
and take it a day at a time. Really, I'm a present kind of guy.
So not too much regret or anxiety over the future.
You always have your regrets, I guess. My regret would be not, losing touch with people. I know people grow apart and stuff, but looking back, there's always something you could have done, or a way you could have, kept that relationship going, or been more honest, with yourself or the other people. So I suppose that might be my biggest regret.
Because in your ideal world,
that way.
In your ideal world, everybody would always get along, always.
Yeah.
Even ex-girlfriends.
Exactly. And I love people. So, if I could leave a positive memory with people, that would be ideal.
It's nice.
If I had no one that cared about me when I died, then I guess it wouldn't matter. Because no one's talking about it or whatever. If there's kids or you still have family, like, obviously you're going to want them to remember you and kind of hold on to that legacy,
Yeah, I suppose that's an interesting point, that, like, yeah, of course it's important unless you don't leave a mark, then it's not important because you won't be there to see the non-mark you haven't left.
Right. So yeah, I guess that's the case of fucking everything up in the end, or at some point where you're alone.
Yeah, I guess.
Then I guess at that point you'd be leaving a negative legacy.
Yeah, I wonder if, like, are there people who spend years and years being a really good person, and then as a little old person, they just turn into a really nasty piece of work?
Right.
Just pissing everyone off? I mean, in a way.
Good.
Yeah. But because
the true colors come out.
But because
when
they're
you lose
little...
your filter and stuff.
Yeah. That's true. It's important to keep a rein on that.
Yeah. It's true. I think, yeah, it's an important topic that you're bringing up. For people like me that definitely don't really talk about that and stall for 10 minutes to even do the interview.
It'd be interesting, if you do have kids, to talk about it again.
Yeah.
Thanks, A.
You're welcome, Shan.
I appreciate your time, even though it took you 2 beers and a shot and 2 cigarettes to get through it.
1 beer.
Love you.
Love you.
So that was me and my little brother, Adam. And the next interview subject in line is my mom, Joanne. Hi, Mom.
Hi, honey.
See, isn't this fun?
It's very fun.
Is it so much fun that you can't?
I can't stand myself.
Before I told you that this chat was about legacy, the word legacy, what would you have thought about that idea?
I think that legacy is what you leave, that your children remember, something to remember you by, not only you, but your family. Legacy is the lessons you've learned and pass them on to your children and your grandchildren, and hopefully that the stories that you had growing up from your childhood, they would remember, and how to treat one another.
So to you, it has a lot to do with tradition.
Tradition and family.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a very big Irish Catholic family that everybody lived pretty close to each other. I mean, within an hour. And we saw each other weekly because my grandmother had a farm. Mm-hmm. And it was a wonderful way to grow up being on a farm. And I had many cousins that were my age. And you played with them, and that's where you made your memories. So I think legacy, to me, is family, values instilled in traditions, and having daughters trying to be strong women. Son trying to be a strong man. Of course, Dad got sick when Adam was at his peak. You know, went through cancer. I think that was difficult for the family. It was difficult on Adam.
Yeah.
The legacy is, you know, because I didn't live near family, we did a lot of creative things. We didn't necessarily grow up, you know, having a lot of money, but we did travel. I mean, we went to see relatives or friends all over, you know, the East Coast and whatnot. So we always had adventure in our lives, a lot of adventure, especially with automobiles.
Yes, on all the road trips. Always an adventure.
I know. We were like, always had some dumpy car that broke down somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm. Not always. We just remember those times.
Right.
Blowing up.
Okay.
Missing birthday parties and stuff.
That's life. And what did I always tell my kids? You know something? Things that happen to you, they build character. I mean, builds character. The disappointments build character. If you never had any disappointments or horrible things, bad things happen to you, then guess what? You don't know how to deal with it when it does happen.
Wouldn't be a very interesting character.
No.
So what do you think that you would have done if you didn't have kids? Did you ever think about anything that you wanted to do?
Yeah, I think I would have been...
Or did you always think...
I always thought I would have children. I always did think that, and, you know, probably Didn't have the aspirations I should, but I did love raising children. I loved being. I loved doing what I did back then. I mean, taking care of a family and, of course, doing my own thing too. I did a lot of arts, crafts and not crafts, but art and. And I always worked a little bit. I always had some little job, but because I do regret never finishing college and having a career of some sort.
So the idea, some people contemplate like legacy in terms of they can't imagine not leaving behind a bit of printed word or a building with their name on it or a sculpture or anything like that. So I would think that is kind of a humanitarian legacy, or they've done something amazing for the environment, like
That's a wonderful thing. I mean, that is wonderful. I think people are admirable if they've done that. That's their legacy, and they have a passion and they've done that. And I wish that I did have more of a passion for something like that. I do believe in all those things, but I just don't probably have the passion that I should.
In terms of the way that you view legacy, I guess that's more of a internal thing in terms of values, morals, socializing.
Right, and do the right
As opposed
thing.
to an external thing. But what I was talking to Adam about is, of all of those things, like whether it's your kids or a building or a piece of writing or a piece of art, how much does it matter once you die? Because you're not going to be there to see the result of any of it. So,
right, I do see people that do, they're leaving all kinds of quilts. They make quilts and they make scrapbooks. Which is lovely. I mean, it really is something to remember somebody by. But I also have a cousin that just sent me a recipe for punch that her mother prepared at my wedding shower 46 years ago. And I said to her, Jean, this is wonderful because your mother's recipes, that's her handwriting. Her handwriting, that's a beautiful thing to read her recipes and you remember some of those meals that she made. That's as wonderful as leaving a whole scrapbook full of pictures. Mm. I mean, but people do different things in different ways. But you don't always have to have something that's a showpiece or some huge monument of yourself. I don't really think that's necessary because people. My grandmother was one of my favorite people, and my Aunt Gracie were two of my favorite people. I don't have anything of theirs. The memories are wonderful.
What do you think that they passed down to you? Did they influence your life?
Yeah, well, I think my grandmother, she was always interested in what we did, tell her stories about our lives and, what we were doing. And she was interested. And to be interested, an interesting person, you have to be interested. Mm-hmm. And that's how you grow.
So she passed along to you the listening skills, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
And inquisitiveness.
Right, and my Aunt Gracie was the same way. And with no judgment. No judgment.
How is that possible?
That's very hard in this day and age, and that's one thing I do regret, that I do have that problem, but I do try to strive to be better. When you think about it, too, there's things that are left behind, like you children may look at certain things in the house and say, well, I really need to have that, and because that reminds me of Mom and Dad. I'm sure there are a few things, but we weren't collectors of things, just because I think things get in the way of your life. Things are not important. I mean, people can have all the most beautiful jewelry, silver, anything, furniture, whatever, antiques. Just becomes a burden sometimes.
Your parents' childhood was moving around a lot, and our early adulthood was moving around a lot.
Yeah,
so they really passed down to you how important it is to have a base and you all
Right.
grow up near each other.
Right.
But you kind of, even if you didn't do as much traveling as we do, you still pass along the adventure side.
Right, and I think my mom, she passed that a lot, in a lot of ways to me, 'cause she told us a lot of stories of her, all the adventures they had as she remembers it. And she was not that she traveled in the Navy, but she was in the Navy. I mean, she left, I think her siblings all thought she was adventurous because she went to St. Louis from New York. Big deal. That's where she ended up. I mean, that was adventurous for her. And she had a sense of adventure. I mean, that wasn't much then. I mean, but
still maintaining that wanderlust.
Right.
And
a wanderlust. I think she always had that, and probably was tied to her family and just knew that she couldn't do those things anymore.
Yeah.
She had to raise 5 kids, so.
So when do you have time to think about anything else?
Right, and how can you, and then some of my, 2 of my aunts, one had 9, one had 10 children. I mean, they couldn't think, they didn't have their own lives ever.
So they weren't sitting there contemplating legacy.
Yeah, they weren't thinking about that. They just had to get through the day.
Yeah.
You've all weathered this storm pretty well, though, don't you think?
Yes, and we have. We've had good tools.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Mom.
You're welcome, honey.
Love you.
Love you, too.
This interview is with my dad, John Vandermark. Hi, Dad.
Hello.
So I just thought that we would start by I would just read the definition of legacy, and you can just tell me what you think about that definition. So it says on dictionary.com, legacy is defined as anything handed down from the past as from an ancestor or predecessor. Is that something that you have thought about recently or often? That idea?
I guess once in a while I do. I don't think I spend a lot of time thinking about that.
The reason why I'm interested in legacy is because I think whether you think about having kids or not through your life, as you're growing up, it is you start to realize that it is the logical legacy.
Right.
So if you don't have that, then how hard do you try to find something else, spiritual or material? How do you fill?
I think you can, regardless, I think you can pass your gifts along to other people.
Even if they're not related to you?
Right, for sure. I think, a good legacy is to know that you did something or you did things to impact other people. Whether they're in or outside of your family.
Mm-hmm.
But you can say, well, whatever, people, friends, or, people you worked with, and you can say, there were specific things that were really positive and you're proud of and happy that you had a chance to do something meaningful for somebody else.
Yeah, so is that kind of passing along your moral compass, or is it I guess it can be a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Do you think that actually a connection with a person is a more tangible legacy than like a piece of writing or painting or like artwork or architecture?
Well, I think, all those other things can be shared forever. So you can, if you built some furniture or you built a house or whatever, if you created something, and then as time goes on, whether it's inside or outside of your family, people can enjoy it and maybe hear a story about it. So I think that's a great kind of legacy to have too. I think a lot of people try to find some kind of a legacy that they can attached to their career,
Yeah.
right?
And yeah, so I suppose if it's your passion, then you're passing along something. I suppose not. It's not everybody that needs a human connection to be a part of it.
Right. It really frees you up to actually do something, not to worry about what the payment is going to be or what the payback is.
Why do you say that it frees you up?
Well, because you can just enjoy kind of being in the moment, rather than, planning, and looking over your shoulder and seeing who's noticing, what you did and
Whether it's fair.
making, well, yeah, a lot of people, as they say, toot their horn, like, oh, this is what I did. I fixed this homeless family's car so that they blah, 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 and, wanted to make sure everybody knew about that.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't, it's sad if that's what you need to do, I think.
Yeah.
And that's something that is terrible to regret. When you hear about somebody and they, you knew who they were, they've reached out to you and tried to have a conversation, and you cut them off because you got a phone call, and then you find out later that, they had a lot to offer that would have been really wonderful to know and to be part of. But, so having the, you don't want to have those regrets. You should be open.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a lot easier to be open if you listen to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of telling them your story. I just think a lot of people don't understand what's out there. That there's a lot more important things to see and hear and all that.
Yeah.
You kind of miss out on it.
I think that we're probably ready to wrap things up, but I was just wondering what you thought when I first said that we were going to talk about legacy. Did anything come to mind immediately?
Yeah, you 3 kids.
Right.
Yeah. And then you start thinking, well, I wonder what does she really mean? But no, I think it's something that really no one can take away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that a lot of people see.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people look at what we have as a family and say, yeah, I would like to have that as a family. And maybe they observe enough where they can, try to attain that for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an important thing.
So it's just a matter for me to redefine what that means because that's what I'm used to.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah. There's ways to work with people, whether they're children or adults, but there's ways to work with people and have some really make meaningful experience. I've done that with the elderly when we were active in church, and I wasn't comfortable doing it, at least in the beginning. But then you can see in someone that's non-communicative, and you can see in their eyes that they're just so happy that you're there.
What was the thing that we used to do? Because I used to do something with.
Well, we used to call on.
Deliver food to the shut-ins.
We should call on shut-ins, as Nana is now. But, you just go and they don't see people from day to day. And you go and visit them once a month or a couple times a month, and they're, they start really looking forward to it. So, and, it takes a while to, I think, understand how important it is to them, because it's not like a fun time out. So it's not like something that you're just necessarily looking forward to, but it's like, okay, I better do this, and you walk away from it and say, oh, I got more out of that than they did, I think. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's, yeah.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Dad.
I'm going to take a short break here to explain the next growth spurt of this episode. Once I got the interviews in place from my brother, my mom, and my dad, I realized that two other key players in that Thanksgiving and this Thanksgiving were absent. My sister Bethany and my brother-in-law Gordon. 2 years ago, they were too busy hosting us all for Thanksgiving after moving into a new home only 4 days prior for me to bother them with my philosophical meanderings. This year is not really any more relaxed, with a 3-month-old baby in the mix and a brand new advanced 4,000 plus piece Lego set to help their 5-year-old son with, as well as preparing to host Thanksgiving for 11 guests. But I managed to grab each of them for a quick chat anyway. Here are my chats with Bethany and Gordon. I hope you enjoy this part, and I'll check in with you on the other side. Hello, Gordon.
Hi there.
Ooh,
Shannon.
You've gone for the oak-aged Snow and Tell. Oh,
Yes,
I've gone for that
you
too.
have.
Great.
You're on.
Great.
We're in the same boat right now.
6.3%.
I didn't take note of that before.
That's what happened the last time.
I think that was the only thing that was cold in the fridge.
Good. So, how are you feeling about having a chat about legacy? Awkward?
A little bit awkward, because it's a deep subject, and I'm right in the middle of dealing with that, just because my dad passed away in March, as you know. So things are being divided, and so it's like it just throws a whole wrench in the idea of legacy to start the conversation, you know?
Well, what does it mean to you right now, today?
Well, right now, today, it means what was passed on, you know, and to me, and you know, I haven't gotten into what passing stuff on in a sense. I mean, Beth and I have talked about trust stuff and estate stuff, so that whatever we have is protected for Mateo and Grace. For better or worse, sort of, I may have trained myself or learned myself into the attempt to live in the moment. I think to a fault, actually. And so the idea of legacy is not something I think about that much. It's like, but I don't like to try to impose impressions on the future in a way, because like when say we're going on a vacation,
Yeah.
and people are like, well, are you excited? It's kind of a silly thing, but I usually say, like, no, I'll be excited when we get on the plane. Like, I don't anticipate like how things are gonna be. I'll try, you know, it's like, where are we gonna go? That's literally enough information for me.
Yep.
Because I know stuff's interesting. I can be interested in almost anything. So it's like same, and so I don't know if that translates, how it translates to the idea of legacy, but I don't look
I know what you mean.
forward into the future and go like, what am I leaving behind that often? But I do more often, because I've thought about it with charity recently. It's like I haven't donated myself to any cause for betterment of anybody. Going back to the idea of materials that could be used in a legacy sort of thing, like with the farm that is the family farm that is now, we're talking about what's going to happen with that, and I think that will be one of our best tools in terms of leaving a legacy, I think, because
do you want to describe that a little bit?
The farm itself,
yeah.
Well, it's an hour or so north of Kansas City by Atchison, and it's it's sizable. It's got a hilltop that's as high as any hilltop in the county, and it from which you can look down on the Missouri River bottom. So the sun goes down at certain parts of the year, just right over. You're looking down a valley that trickles down all the way from this hilltop you're on, and meanders down to the Missouri River bottoms. And so we haven't gone up there a lot because we were living out of town. And I grew up going there, and it's pretty wildernessy. You know, if you want to go get lost in the woods, you can walk around and not see anything. You know, so there's an opportunity. My dad used to take, or a couple times maybe only, he took classes of inner city kids out there on buses. And so stuff like that. I mean, but I'd like to explore that idea, like almost like a men's, not, well, it would be men's, almost like a initiation. You know, I worry because I don't have any ceremony in my life.
So when you talk about that, about missing ceremony, or kind of, I guess, the routine of what a lot of people have in church, do you think that going to the farm as a child gave that to you, a form of ritual? I mean,
no, it wasn't thought of as that, unless ritual is pushing a dull-bladed, bad-motored lawnmower through the yard in 95-degree heat with 80% humidity. I mean, that's a ritual. It's like sun ritual or something.
But is that something that you did like every weekend?
We would do it, yeah. We would go up there almost every weekend when the weather was good.
And does that feel like something that you want to pass down to your kids?
Well, that's the funny thing, yes. But it was miserable as a kid. People, I grew up in the suburbs, so there's people having parties. You know, you're a sophomore in high school, and there's a party on Friday and a party on Saturday. And guess what? You're not going to either one. You're going to go walk behind the dullest bladed mower in the county and mow grass that hasn't been mowed in 2 weeks.
But what do you think that gave you?
A work ethic, I guess, in a certain sense. Even though it was forced labor, it's like, you know,
definitely work ethic.
There's some pride in having done it, just for the experience. It's a hardship that I'm glad happened. And you can say mowing a lawn is not a hardship, but it was a pretty big lawn. I'm telling you, these mowers are terrible. My father didn't really believe in maintenance. I could air quote it, you know.
But I think
maintenance, to have a space that's in the woods. There's nothing around really. To explore that idea with people who wouldn't get the chance, you know, I think that could be a serious opportunity to affect people in a positive way.
Beyond your immediate family.
Beyond my immediate family, for sure. I think that the world is so dynamic right now. I don't think things are going to be very close to the same in a lot of ways in 15 years when it's time for Mateo to be, you know, he's going to be in college. And so the idea of legacy is, let's put him in Taekwondo classes because this might fall apart. And the farm is there and always was there in a sense. In case everything falls apart, you got a place to run away to. So that's the other part of legacy. Once again, it's related to the family, but being like, I need to get me and Beth and Mateo and Grace up there and start figuring out the simple basics of literally survival. Just because if you've got that up there, then that would be a lot more comfortable space for me, mind space, to be like, okay, they've seen potatoes grow that they planted themselves. That's a start. You know, they know how to shoot a gun, shoot a deer. Well, which I've never done, but I mean, I've shot stuff, and if I could, you know, you gotta. So, legacy, it has to be face to face. You know, you just have to walk forward in the direction that you think, and have it be meaningful enough to you to make it turn into something that's worthy of a legacy. You know, I think the legacy develops hopefully organically. I don't know if you can start out being like, I want to have a legacy. Well, you should, I guess. The intention has to be there to even make it happen in the first place, I guess.
Well, I think like some people, whether they would articulate it as a legacy or not, but like, you know, there's people who want to leave behind a book, like feel really compelled to write a book. Like, I mean, I think a big part of your life that you will leave will be music.
Right. Well, in that song, yeah. I mean, yeah, that song's about legacy and the unintentional, all the stuff that you can't control that you pass forward.
So what song are you talking about?
Oh, I played you that song, but for these people, it's a song that I wrote when my daughter was born, Grace. And it just talks about, it's sort of a dig on me, really. As much as it's a song about her, it's like, it's a communication of the fear that I'm passing on, my fear, to her. And so thusly the chorus, when she cries, she looks like me. Like, you know, because she had darker eyes when, you know, babies have different eyes and stuff like that. And not that I doubted she was mine, but that's, you know, songs are always made up of a conglomeration of different ideas. It's never like a real thing, but like the idea of is she yours, is she mine, and then like when she cries, that's when you can tell, because I cry, you know, like, because yeah, when she's at her weakest, that's when she's the most like me, and that's when I can tell. You
can identify.
No, well, but that's the song. I
right.
mean, it's a extrapolation.
Yeah.
On the idea, but and then there's the verse about when she fights, she'll fight like me, and that's just because of, actually, that is a legacy thing that my dad taught me in football, which was because I was small and I played all the way through high school and just got pummeled. It's like 155 pounds and 5'6", you know, just got killed. And
jeez,
he just said, you always got to get up faster than no matter how hard they hit you, get up fast. Don't let them know they hurt you. And that's like, it worked, because I wasn't ever thinking about how bad it hurt. I was thinking about how fast I could get up.
Good advice.
Just show them that you didn't hurt. And so that's the verse about when she fights, she'll fight like me. Because that's what I can pass on.
Right.
Like, get up. Don't let them see you sweat, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and that's a very physical thing.
I'm not
able to translate that.
But that's
mentally.
That's not necessarily. I don't think that is necessarily.
I sweat out of my eyes, you know, and mentally with my ideas. I'm easily, people can tell when I'm rattled, I imagine, but physically, it's like I don't know if anybody could beat me to the point of not being able to get. You'd have to really, really get me good, because I'm like, that's all I care about, getting back up. So that's in that song. But yeah, and music, I would love to leave a legacy of music in terms of I would love to have like 10 songwriters be like, he had like 5 good songs. I'd be like, yes!
There you go.
That's a lot.
I mean, you've recorded good music.
I've been a part of a lot of good stuff. It's fun. So that would be the other thing, yeah. I want him to learn the love of music, and that goes way back in the family on both sides, which I didn't know about until not too long ago. My on my dad's side, they were like vaudevillian, and I didn't know that. I knew on my mom's side that my great uncle was a well-known composer. You know, so that's pretty cool. So I'd like to keep that going.
So that's been passed down? Because it doesn't have to necessarily be in the Hall of Fame or the Grammys.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the enjoyment.
And the ability to play in the ear.
Yeah.
Which Grace, I can already tell, just picks up on sound.
She seems like she's into it. At 3 months old, she seems like, when I sit down and play the guitar and sing to her, she's like, she seems to like it. Or that may just be me loving my one audience member that'll listen. Like, yes.
To my number one fan.
Yes, she's not getting up and leaving.
Because she can't barely lift her head.
Why are you making that face, Grace? Oh, that's because you can't get up and leave. I see.
Well, it's interesting to me, obviously, that you say a lot about passing on to your kids, but you seem to say equal parts to just passing on to people, like taking people to the farm and just being an influence on people in general, and maybe doing charity.
Yeah, I think you can. That's part of, I guess, living in the now is like you can just setting an example in life in general is passing on the legacy. You're affecting other people. Every person you come across and look in the eye, that's affecting the future. Mm-hmm. And I try to be conscious of that. How you treat people. That's legacy, because it ripples, hopefully, when you do it well,
100%.
So, yeah.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add before the timer buzzes?
Can we just redo the whole thing?
No, that was great!
No, I know there's a lot of stuttering. And...
No! People always think there's more than there is. I mean, you don't talk in sound bites.
Well, that's what I want to do. So let's just start over.
Let's just read it.
No.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm so proud of what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
this takes a lot of courage.
It's totally enjoyable. I love it.
And yeah, you're sending stuff into the future, which is amazing. Positive stuff that helps people,
Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm sure of it. You've had people tell you as much, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
Legacy.
Yes, thank
Legacy.
you. Legacy.
Indeed. Cheers.
Well, to you.
To you.
Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.
Hello, Bethany.
Hello.
So, I just thought that we would have a little casual chat with a microphone.
So cash. Feels totally normal.
I sent you the definition of legacy in a text message. And we've talked about it before, but what did you think when you read that?
Legacy, by definition, would be something that you put a lot of time and effort into, looking into the future at what is going to be left behind, right?
Yeah, I'd say.
The way that I've lived my life,
yeah,
I haven't planned very meticulously. I've really I really go with the flow. In a lot of ways, I've been lucky. But I really haven't, I don't think of what I'm going to leave behind. But when I was thinking about it today, like how will I answer these questions? I wondered if there's a such thing as a short-term legacy. So if you move through the world and move through your day, and you pass all these different people throughout the day, and you're not necessarily going to leave a lasting memory with everybody, but I do try to make a point to make eye contact, smile at people, and if you can improve one person's day, have you left a mark? If they improve someone else's day, and could that be considered a legacy? So, especially right now, having 2 young kids and not having the mind space or time to really do anything grand. I go to the grocery store. I take walks.
Yeah.
But if I can make an impact with the interactions I have with people, even if it's just the clerk at the store or somebody you pass on the street, that's what I try to do.
And so do you, I mean, I know saying that you've got young kids and that takes up a lot of mental space, but do you feel like you've gotten any more philosophical about kind of passing things on since you've become a mom?
Well, something that we've talked about a lot is, of course, as we try to evolve, we try to be better versions of ourselves.
Are you saying what you and I have talked about, or what you and Gordon have talked about?
What you and I,
yeah,
Shannon, have talked about
yes,
throughout the years.
Yeah.
That, yeah, if we aren't becoming better versions of ourselves, or what we liked and what we didn't like about our upbringing, then what's the point?
Yeah.
So, yes, of course, I try to raise Mateo to be one of the most important things to Gordon and I is how he treats other people, and making sure that he makes eye contact with other people and introduces himself and understands that people are important. And that's the most important thing to us, is that he engages with other people.
Yeah. She does. She can't.
And maybe we've done too good of a job because
he doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in kind of a global way, you still find a lot of value in affecting the greater world. You don't feel like having your own small family that's enough. You've got to just focus on that, and like the rest of it is, you can't really consider.
No, I think that, I guess that would be the stamp, is that it's so much more important than just our family and being happy by yourself, because it's a whole world and we have to take care of each other. That's the most important thing.
Are you sentimental about stuff at all? Like, are you like...
I'm in a weird place with that, because when Gordon's mom passed away, we started helping his dad go through the stuff that they had accumulated at their house, and it was a huge job.
Right.
They had collected a lot, and it was all many important memories, documents, all mixed up with things that were just, it was just stuff. But it's hard to tell what's important to a person that's not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And since I was the person that was really going through it, and Gordon was kind of helping his dad, I had no idea what was important to his mom at that point, because she wasn't around anymore. So it all was just a lot of stuff.
Right.
And now I have a really hard time. I love stuff. I love decorating. I love collecting things. I love fabric, candles. I love old stuff. I love new stuff. But I also know that you have to be able to walk away from all of it too, because of all the stuff that they collected. If they're not here to hand it to you and say, this is important to me because, then it's just another thing in a pile of things.
Right.
So I can't think of a thing that I would want to give my kids to remember me by.
Really? Nothing? Yeah.
I mean, I think what I would like to give my kids is more a feeling and a way of life.
Yeah. Well, because they could just keep using that every day and not have to find it in a box, dust it off.
And many, many digital photos.
So many, and some videos.
Yeah.
Does thinking about it make you anxious, or is it a positive or negative thing to consider?
Legacy and
Yeah, like
specifically?
yeah, or I mean, yeah, I guess just.
Well, I think it's important to feel fulfilled and to do things that make you feel good about yourself and hopefully make other people feel good. Mm-hmm. And trying to figure out what that is important. And I think that more people that do that, the better world we could live in. Mm. And I guess I kind of think if you aren't doing that while you're on your quest anyway, then what's the point? Because you may never get an answer anyway.
Yeah.
And you may have spent all this time on a journey and not paying attention to what's in front of you every day.
Yes.
Do you ever listen to these this podcast about cults? Those guys.
They have it figured out.
Or women. They've got it figured out. I don't know how they do it or what their secret is.
But do they go on for generations and generations?
I guess not. Some of them do. But it's like whatever. I mean, a lot of them do horrible, horrible things. But somehow they get people. They get people to. They just come up with an idea and say like, we're gonna worship Smurfs. And
is there a Smurf cult?
Probably. And people will do it.
If somebody's compelling enough.
And it's just they make their own rules and just decide like, this is it. This is what we do.
You can do that.
I suppose. You have to believe in yourself.
And Smurfs. How often are these kind of grand plans ever realized? I mean, when you think of legacy from like a leaving behind an album that you've recorded or a book you've written or a painting you've done or something, even the most successful ones oftentimes aren't even viewed with the intention of the artist.
Right. It doesn't matter because it's going to be interpreted however the people want to interpret it. But I will tell you, as far as recording voice goes, the most compelling thing that we found of Gordon's mom's after she passed away was a cassette tape of her having a session with I don't think it was a psychic, but it was somebody in that realm that
a medium clairvoyant.
Yes, so it was just a conversation they were having of like I think the maybe she was a numerologist, I'm not sure. Pretty progressive for Janie.
Yeah.
But hearing her voice and hearing her answer questions about her life, I learned more about her than looking at pictures or hearing stories from other people. Hearing her voice was, really compelling.
It's like Nana, when Nana moved away from the house after she had another stroke. I was like going through things and like she still was wondering where like her cookie platters were. It's like she was never going to be baking anymore.
Right.
But You don't wake up one day and realize that that's the day that you're going to stop.
This is the
doing
last time
stuff.
I've baked cookies.
I mean, that's mind-boggling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really speaks to the seize the day and finish projects, and sitting in this room right now makes me feel that anxiety.
Explain where we are.
We are in the basement of my house, in a little room in the basement that has a separate room that has a door, and it's all of my tools and supplies and printers.
Like
and
the biggest printer anyone has ever seen outside of Kinko's or the British equivalent, which I don't even know what it is. I literally am looking at it right now, and I think it's longer than I would be lying down. I think it's longer than 5'6".
only one way to find out.
Get
Hop
in
up
that
there.
printer. It's huge. Yeah, there are shelves and shelves of printer cartridges and markers and things.
Yarn and magazines and
But you've got tons
half-done
of...
photo albums. So
Oh, I
tons
see.
of potential.
Right.
It's just supplies to do all the things that I'd like to do one day.
Well, you did just have a baby 3 months ago, so it's time to get on with it now.
TikTok.
Time's running out. Okay, well, I really appreciate you talking to me at 10 minutes to 10 p.m. when we've had a full day.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
And this will continue for 10 more days. Non-stop.
Yes. Don't think
Don't
it's really
pretend
over.
like it's over.
All right. Love you.
I love you too.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to see some photos of myself and my family, including my sister's huge-ass printer and my 5-year-old nephew Mateo with his age 16 and above expert-level Lego set, please check me out on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter if you search Happily Ever After Podcast. In fact, that's where you can find photos of most of my guests, as well as other random life moments that I have managed to document. If you do like the show, please help me promote it in any way you can. You can write a quick review in iTunes. More reviews help make the show more visible to anyone searching for this topic. It's some algorithm thing. Another way to help is to become a patron. Go to the Happily Ever After Without Children page on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Happily Ever After Podcast to make a monthly contribution so that I can remain an independent producer and so that you can get some exclusive perks. And finally, please share details of this podcast with your network of friends and family. You never know who else might be suffering and could really use a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. This is your host, Shannon Vandermark, and I thank you for listening.